The medieval world was a place where history and myth intertwined so deeply that they were often indistinguishable. From the sprawling castles and battlefields to the quiet monasteries, every corner of medieval society held tales of wondrous creatures, divine artifacts, and legendary heroes. These myths were not merely fanciful stories. They were lifelines for understanding the world around them. They were the language of the past, passed down through generations to help people make sense of the mysteries they faced. At a time when most of the population was illiterate and records were scarce, the power of oral tradition reigned supreme. Scribes and bards kept the flames of these stories alive, recounting the feats of knights and kings, the fall of great empires, and the eerie mysteries that seemed to haunt every darkened corner of the earth. For the medieval people, these myths served more than just entertainment. They were a way to understand their world, their place in it, and their relationship with the divine. In a society defined by a belief in supernatural forces, many events that today would be explained by science were instead interpreted through the lens of myth. Plagues, celestial events, and unexplained disappearances were all woven into the tapestry of folklore. A comet in the sky could signal the arrival of great change. The death of a king could be seen as the result of a divine curse. And as for the great unexplored lands across the seas, they were teeming with untold wonders and dangers, full of mythical creatures and hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. While these myths were embraced by the masses, scholars of the time were not always so kind. The learned men and women, priests, philosophers, and scribes, often dismissed such legends as superstition, choosing instead to focus on what they saw as concrete history. The works of Greek and Roman scholars were revered, and medieval thinkers looked backward to the great civilizations that came before, rather than interpreting their own world through the lens of myth. However, even in these learned circles there remained a certain ambiguity about what was truth and what was imagination. It wasn't until centuries later, with the rise of archaeology, historical research, and scientific technology, that some of these stories were revisited. What was once considered nothing more than folklore was now beginning to be examined through the lens of evidence. Slowly, the lines between myth and history began to blur, as scholars and explorers uncovered remnants of the very stories that had once been dismissed. Take, for example, the story of the Holy Grail, a symbol of divine power, eternal life, and the pinnacle of medieval legend. Once thought to be purely fictional, the Grail has now become a symbol of mankind's endless search for meaning. The quest for the Grail was woven into the legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, inspiring countless versions of the story. But over time, historical texts and even archaeological findings have suggested that this legendary object may have been more than just a story. Artifacts, ancient texts, and relics discovered in medieval monasteries hint at a connection between the Grail and real, tangible historical events. Similarly, the myth of the Knights Templar, the secretive medieval order of knights charged with protecting holy relics, has been subjected to intense scrutiny. Long thought to be the stuff of legend, these knights were believed to guard treasures beyond imagination, including the Holy Grail. While many of these myths were dismissed as mere fantasy, modern research has uncovered evidence that points to a far more complex reality, with the Templars playing a pivotal role in the history of medieval Europe. And then there's the legend of Atlantis, the fabled lost city of an ancient civilization. Though the myth originated in ancient Greece, it found a second life during the medieval period, when it was incorporated into the lore of many cultures. Today, submerged cities and ancient ruins discovered across the world suggest that the idea of Atlantis may not be a mere fantasy after all. These are just a few examples of myths that have been validated by modern research, but they are by no means the only ones. What we have learned through the painstaking work of historians, archaeologists, and scientists is that many of the stories we once thought were pure fiction have been grounded in historical truth. The more we uncover, the more we realize that history and myth are not two separate realms, but are deeply intertwined. This realization serves as a reminder of the power of myth in human history, not as a tool for blind belief, but as a way of understanding the mysteries of the world. The stories we tell, whether based in reality or the imagination, are an essential part of who we are. They shape our understanding of the past and in doing so they shape the future. As we journey through the medieval myths that have been proven true, we will see how these stories, once dismissed as mere tales of fantasy, are now understood as pieces of a larger historical puzzle. The truth, as it often does, lies hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Through the lens of modern science and historical inquiry, we begin to see that history is not just a series of events, but a story, one that we are still uncovering. The legend of Atlantis, that fabled lost city said to have been swallowed by the sea, has been etched into the collective imagination for centuries. First introduced by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BCE, Atlantis was described as a vast and powerful civilization that existed thousands of years before his time. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato told the story of a utopian society that flourished on a large island in the Atlantic Ocean. But as the tale goes, the island was lost in a cataclysmic event, engulfed by the ocean in a single day and night of misfortune. Plato's account sparked a series of questions and debates that continue to this day. Was Atlantis a real place, or was it simply a myth meant to illustrate the dangers of hubris and moral decay? For centuries, scholars and explorers dismissed Atlantis as a fictional allegory. But as time went on, the story persisted and evolved, fueling the imagination of those who believed that somewhere out there, an advanced civilization lay beneath the waves, waiting to be rediscovered. Throughout the medieval period, the story of Atlantis found its way into many European texts. While not all medieval scholars accepted it as fact, the idea of a lost, powerful civilization was a subject of great fascination. Atlantis became part of the larger body of medieval thought that mixed classical philosophy with Christian theology. Some believed that the fall of Atlantis was a punishment for its moral corruption, a theme that resonated with the biblical story of Noah's flood. In fact, many medieval scholars speculated that Atlantis may have been connected to the biblical Tower of Babel, a symbol of mankind's defiance against God. The fascination with Atlantis during the medieval period wasn't just limited to philosophers and theologians. In the late 12th and early 13th centuries, the idea of Atlantis was often incorporated into the mythologies of seafaring nations. Explorers and maritime scholars began to speak of distant lands in the Atlantic that were once inhabited by a great civilization. These theories were often influenced by the ancient writings of Plato, as well as new accounts of voyages to the farthest reaches of the known world. One of the more famous medieval references to Atlantis can be found in the writings of Saint Augustine of Hippo, who mentioned the lost island in his book, The City of God. Augustine viewed the tale of Atlantis as a symbol of the fleeting nature of human achievement and as a warning against the pride that led to the civilization's downfall. But it wasn't just religious scholars who were drawn to the myth. The idea of Atlantis became intertwined with the medieval quest for knowledge and discovery, and it helped fuel the imagination of explorers who ventured out into the unknown. It was not just in the written word that Atlantis lived on. During the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery, explorers like Christopher Columbus and Amerigo Vespucci were inspired by the ancient accounts of a great island in the Atlantic, hoping that they might stumble upon this lost civilization during their voyages. The Age of Exploration reignited interest in the legend of Atlantis, and it sparked a new wave of searches for the fabled city, searches that would persist well into modern times. Fast forward to the present day, and modern discoveries have given a new dimension to the Atlantis myth. While no one has yet found a smoking gun, a single irrefutable piece of evidence confirming the exact location of Atlantis, there have been numerous findings that hint at the possibility that a civilization was indeed lost beneath the waves. One of the most famous examples is the discovery of the ancient city of Heraklion, located off the coast of Egypt in the Mediterranean Sea. Once thought to be purely mythical, Heraklion was a thriving port city that sank into the sea over 1,000 years ago. The ruins of this city, discovered in 2000 by underwater archaeologists, included grand temples, statues, and artifacts that pointed to a highly advanced civilization, much like the society Plato described. The discovery of Pavlopetri, an ancient city off the coast of Greece, also lends credence to the idea of a lost civilization in the Mediterranean. Submerged under about 4 meters of water, Pavlopetri dates back more than 5,000 years, and its ruins are considered some of the oldest underwater archaeological sites in the world. The city's layout with streets, buildings, and even a port suggests a well-organized society that had advanced knowledge of construction and maritime navigation. Could it be that Pavlopetri represents an early iteration of the Atlantis myth, a city lost to the sea, preserved in time, waiting to be rediscovered? Additionally, the Bermuda Triangle, a region in the North Atlantic Ocean known for mysterious disappearances of ships and aircraft, has long been associated with the Atlantis legend. Some theorists propose that the region could be the site of the lost city, with its inexplicable phenomena and underwater ruins providing further evidence that something extraordinary might lie beneath the waves. Another intriguing connection to Atlantis comes from the Caribbean island of Cuba. In 2001, a team of divers discovered large pyramid-like structures off the coast of Cuba, deep beneath the ocean. The formation of these structures, which appear to be man-made, reignited speculation that the ancient city of Atlantis might be located in the Caribbean Sea. While many experts have debated the authenticity of the find, the discovery still raises fascinating questions about what civilizations may have existed long before known history. But Atlantis isn't confined to the Mediterranean or the Caribbean. There are hints of similar stories around the world. From the ancient ruins of Yonaguni in Japan, often called the Japanese Atlantis, to the underwater ruins off the coast of India's Gulf of Cambay, evidence continues to mount that many ancient civilizations may have been submerged due to rising sea levels, natural disasters, or other catastrophic events. Despite the lack of definitive proof, what modern discoveries have shown us is that the idea of a lost, advanced civilization beneath the sea is not as far-fetched as once believed. The legends of Atlantis, once thought to be the stuff of myth, are now seen as possibly grounded in real events. The line between history and myth has blurred, and as technology advances, it is only a matter of time before more pieces of the Atlantis puzzle are uncovered. So, was Atlantis simply a fantastical story? Or was it a real civilization whose remnants lie hidden beneath the oceans, waiting to be rediscovered by the modern world? As we continue to explore the seas and unlock the secrets of our past, one thing becomes clear. The legend of Atlantis may be more than just myth. It may be an ancient truth waiting to be revealed. The Holy Grail, a symbol of divine grace, eternal life, and supernatural power, has captured the imagination of humanity for centuries. For many, it is the quintessential object of desire, a mysterious and sacred relic said to hold unimaginable power. But the Grail is not just a legendary artifact from myth. It has deep roots in medieval Christianity, a symbol intertwined with the stories of knights, kings, and the very foundation of religious belief during the Middle Ages. According to Christian tradition, the Holy Grail was the cup used by Jesus Christ at the Last Supper, the vessel that received his blood during the crucifixion. After the death of Christ, the Grail became the object of an epic quest, with numerous knights and adventurers undertaking dangerous journeys in search of this holy relic. For medieval Christians, the Grail represented not just a piece of divine history, but the promise of spiritual enlightenment and salvation. To possess it was to hold a tangible connection to the divine. In medieval times, the Grail became an integral part of the larger tapestry of myth and legend, especially through the stories surrounding King Arthur and his knights. The search for the Holy Grail became the ultimate quest for these knights, symbolizing their pursuit of divine grace and moral purity. The Grail legend was crystallized in texts like The Quest for the Holy Grail and Percival, where knights set out to find the elusive object in hopes of achieving spiritual redemption and proving their worthiness. The Vulgate Cycle, a collection of medieval romances, depicted the Grail as a powerful object that could heal, provide eternal life, and bring peace to the world. In these stories, the Grail's significance goes beyond being a mere relic. Its power is intertwined with the moral and spiritual integrity of those who seek it. Only the purest of heart could hope to find the Grail and harness its power. The Knights Templar, a religious and military order that rose to prominence during the Crusades, are often linked with the Grail in medieval lore. This secretive order, tasked with protecting Christian pilgrims and guarding sacred sites, has been the subject of much speculation regarding their connection to the Grail. The Templars were rumored to have discovered the Grail during their time in the Holy Land, and brought it back to Europe. According to some accounts, the Templars safeguarded the Grail, keeping its location secret and protecting it from those who would misuse its power. Throughout the Crusades, when knights and warriors ventured into the Holy Land, tales of the Grail grew more fantastical. Some believed that the Templars had hidden the Grail in a secret location, perhaps in the crypts beneath their grand chapels or within the vaults of their fortress in Jerusalem. The notion that the Grail was not just an object, but a vessel of immense spiritual power, made it an object of profound fascination. Yet for centuries the Grail existed mainly within the realm of myth and legend. It wasn't until the Renaissance and the Age of Exploration that serious efforts to uncover the Grail took shape. As European explorers ventured further into the world, searching for the Grail became synonymous with their quests for glory, wealth, and religious conquest. Some historians believe that the idea of the Grail inspired the quest for new territories and the search for unknown relics in the New World. In modern times, the search for the Holy Grail continues to capture the public's imagination. While no definitive proof of its existence has been uncovered, the Grail has remained a subject of intense speculation. Throughout the centuries, relics, artifacts, and writings have been discovered that seem to suggest that the Grail was not just a figment of medieval imagination, but an object with a tangible historical basis. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence is the Chalice of Valencia, a relic believed by some to be the true Holy Grail. This cup, housed in the Cathedral of Valencia, Spain, has been venerated for centuries and is thought by some to be the very cup used by Christ at the Last Supper. The cup's age, its religious significance, and its journey through history make it a candidate for the legendary Grail, though its authenticity remains a topic of debate among scholars. In addition to the Chalice of Valencia, the Grail of Glastonbury is another artifact tied to the Grail myth. According to legend, Joseph of Arimathea, a follower of Christ, traveled to England after the crucifixion and brought with him the Holy Grail. The Grail was believed to have been hidden in Glastonbury, a place that would later be known for its mystical connection to Arthurian legend. While no physical Grail has ever been found, the connection between Glastonbury and the Grail continues to captivate those who believe in the possibility of the artifact as real existence. Further complicating the story of the Grail is the Sangreal, an ancient text said to contain the secrets of the Grail. Some believe that the Sangreal reveals not just the location of the Grail, but also its deeper significance. Was the Grail simply a cup, or did it represent something more? Perhaps an ancient secret or hidden knowledge that has been passed down through the centuries? Many theorists suggest that the Grail's true power lies in the secrets it may hold, rather than in its physical form. Moreover, the Templar documents and cryptic writings that have surfaced over the years have fueled rumors that the Grail may be hidden in plain sight, concealed within secret Templar knowledge or Christian iconography. For example, some believe that the Grail is not a literal cup but a symbolic object, an embodiment of divine truth, a vessel for hidden knowledge that can transform those who seek it. In more recent years, the discovery of medieval manuscripts, such as the parchment of Montségur, has provided even more tantalizing clues. These ancient documents speak of sacred objects and cryptic messages related to the Grail. Could the Templars have encoded the Grail's secrets within these texts, passing them down through hidden symbols, codes, and allegories? Scholars and researchers continue to pore over these documents, hoping to uncover the truth. While no one has definitively found the Holy Grail, the ongoing search continues to excite historians, archaeologists, and treasure hunters. Each new discovery, whether a relic, manuscript, or hidden chamber, brings us one step closer to unraveling the mystery. Is the Grail merely a myth, or is it a historical object with the power to change the course of history? The legend of the Holy Grail endures, evolving from a symbol of divine power to a subject of intense scholarly pursuit. Its story, shrouded in mystery, continues to inspire new generations to search for it, believing that the Grail may one day be revealed, not just as an object of faith but as a living piece of history, a bridge between myth and reality. The Knights Templar, once the most powerful and mysterious military order in medieval Europe, have long been the subject of intrigue and speculation. Founded in the early 12th century, the Templars were originally established to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land during the Crusades. However, over time, Their influence and wealth grew to legendary proportions, sparking rumors of hidden treasures, ancient knowledge, and a secretive agenda that ultimately led to their dramatic downfall. At the height of their power, the Templars were feared and respected across Europe. The Order's mission was simple: to defend Christianity and its sacred sites from the forces of Islam during the Crusades. Yet as they grew in strength and number, they became entangled in the complexities of medieval politics, and their role in the Crusades expanded far beyond that of simple protectors. The Templars were warriors, diplomats, financiers, and sometimes even kings in their own right. Their involvement in the Holy Land would forever change the course of history. Medieval myths surrounding the Templars often painted them as guardians of powerful relics, most notably the Holy Grail, and hidden treasures of immense value. The Order's secrecy and elite status led to countless rumors that they were in possession of knowledge and artifacts of ancient and mystical origin. The very name Templar became synonymous with mystery, and soon tales of their wealth and hidden treasures became as legendary as their military prowess. These rumors of secret treasures were not merely fanciful stories. Medieval writers and chroniclers often spoke of the Templars as having access to incredible riches, accumulated not only through their military campaigns, but also through their banking system, which was revolutionary for its time. The Templars' banking operations were vast and sophisticated, enabling pilgrims and crusaders to deposit funds in one location and withdraw them at another, making the order one of the earliest examples of international banking. This wealth, combined with their mysterious activities and powerful influence, led to widespread speculation that the Templars were privy to an ancient secret, perhaps even a lost treasure, hidden in plain sight. One of the most enduring myths about the Templars is their supposed connection to the Holy Grail. According to some theories, the Templars had discovered the Grail during their time in Jerusalem, perhaps in the ruins of the Temple of Solomon, a site that was of great interest to them. It was believed that the Grail was hidden by the Templars to protect its power and prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Other legends suggested that the Grail was a symbol of secret knowledge, and that the Templars guarded not just the cup from the Last Supper, but the esoteric wisdom of the ancients. This idea became particularly prominent in the 20th century, with books like the Da Vinci Code bringing the myth of the Templars' hidden treasures to a modern audience. But how much of this was fact, and how much was pure legend? While the myths surrounding the Templars are tantalizing, the historical reality of their role is equally fascinating. The Templars were not just treasure hunters or mystical guardians. They were one of the most organized and disciplined military orders of the medieval world. Founded by Hugh de Payens in 1119, the order's original mission was to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, but it quickly grew into a powerful military force during the Crusades. The Templars participated in numerous battles and sieges, and their knights were renowned for their combat skills and unwavering loyalty to their cause. In addition to their military role, the Templars were also deeply involved in the construction of fortresses and castles across the Holy Land. They built imposing strongholds like the famous Château Pèlerin, which stood as a symbol of their power. Their influence extended beyond warfare, however. The Templars became wealthy landowners, accumulating vast estates across Europe. They also established a network of commanderies, regional centers where the order maintained its operations. But it was their banking system that truly set them apart. The Templars' banking activities were integral to their success and longevity. They offered services that were ahead of their time, such as letters of credit, which allowed pilgrims and crusaders to travel safely without the need to carry large sums of money. This innovation made the Templars indispensable to the economy of medieval Europe, and their growing wealth made them one of the most powerful organizations in Christendom. However, it was this very wealth that would ultimately contribute to the downfall of the Templars. As their power grew, so too did their enemies. The Templars became embroiled in the politics of medieval Europe, and their influence caught the attention of King Philip IV of France. In the early 14th century, King Philip, who was deeply in debt to the order, saw an opportunity to rid himself of this powerful institution. In 1307, he ordered the arrest of all Templars in France, accusing them of heresy, blasphemy, and other crimes. The knights were tortured and coerced into confessing to the charges, and many were burned at the stake, including the Grand Master, Jacques de Molay. The charges against the Templars were never proven, and many historians today believe that King Philip N's motives were driven by greed and a desire to seize the Templars' vast wealth. In 1312, Pope Clement XIII officially dissolved the order, although some Templar members went underground and continued to operate in secret. The fate of the Templar treasures has been the subject of much speculation ever since. Some believe that the order hid their riches perhaps in locations like the Château de Gisors in France, or even in Scotland, where they had a significant presence. Others suggest that the Templars simply lost their wealth and influence with the fall of the order. Despite their dramatic and violent end, the legacy of the Templars endures. Their mysterious rise and fall have inspired countless theories, books, films, and conspiracy theories. The question of whether they really guarded ancient treasures, such as the Holy Grail, continues to fuel the imaginations of those who seek hidden knowledge and lost artifacts. What is certain, however, is that the Templars played a crucial role in the history of the medieval world. They were not just warriors and treasure hunters, but pioneers in banking and international finance, and their influence extended far beyond the Crusades. The myths surrounding their hidden treasures and secret knowledge may never be fully unraveled. But the Templars remain one of the most fascinating and enigmatic organizations in history, an order that combined faith, power, and mystery in equal measure. The tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is one of the most iconic works of medieval literature, a story that has captured the imagination for centuries. At its core is the enigmatic figure of the Green Knight, a towering, otherworldly being who challenges the knights of King Arthur's court to a test of honor and bravery. The Green Knight, with his vibrant, verdant hue and supernatural aura, serves as both a literal and symbolic figure, representing forces that transcend human understanding. But while the tale itself has long been considered a work of fiction, recent scholarship and archaeological discoveries suggest that there may be more truth behind the myth than previously thought. The story, dating back to the late 14th century, takes place in Arthurian Britain. The Green Knight rides into the court of King Arthur during a New Year's feast, challenging any knight who dares to strike him with his own axe, on the condition that the knight will receive a return blow in a year and a day. Sir Gawain, Arthur's nephew, and one of the most noble knights of the Round Table, accepts the challenge, strikes the Green Knight, and watches in disbelief as the Green Knight picks up his own severed head and reminds Gawain of his promise. The tale follows Gawain's journey to fulfill his pact, exploring themes of chivalry, honor, temptation, and human frailty. Initially, the Green Knight was viewed as an allegorical figure, embodying the forces of nature, the Green Man of pagan mythology, or a symbolic representation of death and rebirth. Yet the medieval culture in which the tale was told had its own unique beliefs, rituals, and chivalric codes that may have informed the narrative. The chivalric orders of the time, such as the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitaller, were deeply entwined with the religious, moral, and social fabric of medieval society. The rituals, oaths, and codes that governed these orders were often surrounded by mystery, and it's within this context that the Green Knight can be better understood. Chivalric orders and knightly culture. To understand the Green Knight's significance, we must first explore the culture of knighthood in medieval Europe. Chivalry was more than just a code of honor for knights. It was a system of conduct that combined martial prowess with religious devotion, charity, and service to the king and church. Knights were expected to uphold virtues such as courage, loyalty, and honor, as well as to follow strict codes of behavior regarding their relationships with women, religion, and their fellow knights. Within this system, the concept of tests of honor was central, and the Green Knight's challenge may have been seen as a metaphorical rite of passage for knights, testing their commitment to these ideals. At the time the story was written, chivalric orders were deeply influential. The knightly orders were not just soldiers, they were spiritual warriors bound by sacred oaths and rituals. Their beliefs about life and death, nature, and the divine played a significant role in shaping the cultural backdrop of medieval tales like that of the Green Knight. Many of these orders, including the Order of the Garter and the Templars, held secret rites, initiations, and symbolism that often invoked elements of the natural world and the cycles of life. The Green Knight's connection to nature, his green skin, his association with a festive yet ominous challenge, may reflect an ancient reverence for nature's power, a theme that was woven into many knightly practices. Green symbolism in medieval society. The color green itself holds rich symbolism in medieval culture. Green was associated with both fertility and danger, embodying the unpredictable forces of nature. It was often seen as the color of rebirth, growth, and renewal, as well as the unpredictable elements of life that could be both nourishing and destructive. The Green Knight's verdant appearance, then, is likely symbolic of these dual aspects of nature, the nurturing yet potentially dangerous force that governed both life and death. Green also had a spiritual significance in medieval Christianity, often linked to the concept of immortality and renewal through Christ's resurrection. In this context, the Green Knight could be interpreted as a symbol of the eternal cycles of life, death, and rebirth. He is a figure who, despite being struck down, comes back to life, much like the earth in spring after the harsh winter months. His challenge to Gawain, then, represents the spiritual trials that every knight, and indeed every person, must face in their life journey, confronting death, temptation, and the need for moral integrity. The Green Knight in the context of paganism and nature worship. In addition to its Christian interpretations, the Green Knight is often linked to earlier pagan traditions, particularly the figure of the Green Man, a symbol of fertility and the natural world. The Green Man is a recurring motif in medieval church architecture, often depicted as a face surrounded by foliage or vines. This connection to pre-Christian nature worship highlights the tension between the Christian worldview and the lingering influence of older pagan beliefs. In many medieval societies, nature was seen as both a sacred and dangerous force, and the Green Knight's supernatural abilities, including his ability to survive a beheading, reflect this. His presence in Arthur's court might have been a reminder of the ancient, untamable powers of nature that the knights, who often represented the forces of order, were called upon to confront and conquer. This tension between order and chaos, civilization and nature, was a central theme in many chivalric legends. Modern interpretations and evidence. Recent scholarship has uncovered fascinating insights into the historical and cultural context of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, suggesting that the story's foundation might be based on real knightly rituals and practices. Archaeologists and historians have found evidence of real-life knights engaging in elaborate ceremonies that involved tests of honor, often with symbolic challenges that reflected the themes of death and rebirth. The Green Knight's challenge, with its set time frame of a year and a day, could have been based on actual initiatory rituals within knightly orders, where a knight was tested over a period of time to prove his virtue and commitment. Further studies of medieval literature have revealed that certain symbols in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, such as the Green Knight's appearance and his association with the seasons, may have been inspired by pagan rituals designed to honor the cycles of nature. Some historians speculate that the tale was not merely a work of fiction, but a reflection of the real spiritual and social customs of medieval knights who revered the natural world and the divine. One example of such a ritual comes from the Knights of the Round Table and their role in performing sacred acts during certain festivals. Some medieval documents suggest that knights participated in symbolic rites that invoked the changing of the seasons, reflecting the themes of renewal and the passage of time seen in the tale of Gawain and the Green Knight. The legacy of the Green Knight. The story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight continues to captivate audiences because it resonates with timeless themes: the pursuit of honor, the testing of virtue, and the moral complexities of human nature. While the Green Knight may have been a figure of legend, the underlying message of the tale, the importance of courage, honesty, and personal growth, remains relevant across centuries. As modern historians and archaeologists uncover more about medieval knightly orders, the line between myth and reality continues to blur, revealing that even the most fantastical stories may have roots in real historical practices. In the end, the Green Knight serves as a reminder of the intricate dance between legend and history, and the ways in which the knights of the medieval world confronted both the external dangers of battle and the internal trials of the soul. Whether as a symbol of nature's power or a reflection of medieval knightly ideals, the Green Knight remains one of the most compelling figures in medieval lore, a reminder of the enduring quest for honor, truth, and self-understanding. In the rugged, isolated hills of southeastern France, a chilling tale unfolded during the mid-18th century, one that would become entrenched in history as the legend of the Beast of Gévaudan. Between 1764 and 1767, a mysterious creature, or perhaps creatures, terrorized the rural province of Gévaudan, attacking and killing nearly 100 people, mostly women and children. The attacks were brutal, the descriptions of the beast varied, and the populace was gripped with fear as rumors spread that it was no ordinary animal. Some believed the creature to be a supernatural being, a demon sent to punish the region. Others saw it as an omen of impending doom, an incarnation of evil itself. The tale of the beast became the stuff of legend, widely discussed in local taverns, the halls of the French court, and across Europe. It was said to be a massive creature with the body of a wolf, but an almost monstrous size and strength. Witnesses described it as having a terrifying snout, sharp fangs, and an insatiable hunger for human flesh. But as time went on, the story became more fantastical. Whispers of the beast having the ability to evade human hunters, even mocking their attempts to track it down. Some believed it was a wolf cursed by witches, or a mystical predator that could not be killed. The first documented sightings of the beast began in 1764, when it was reported to have attacked a young woman near the village of Langogne. Soon after, more attacks followed in rapid succession, each one more horrifying than the last. Witnesses recounted tales of the beast appearing out of nowhere, rushing from the underbrush with incredible speed, and striking victims with a force so devastating that it seemed unnatural. The people of Gévaudan were terrified, and fear swept through the countryside. Attempts to capture or kill the creature were largely unsuccessful, and the killings only escalated. The local authorities, unable to deal with the crisis, called upon the French crown for assistance. In response, King Louis XV sent a contingent of royal soldiers and a team of expert hunters to the region. The king also promised a large reward for the beast's capture, further fueling the hysteria and attracting hunters from all over France. For several years, the search for the creature seemed futile. Despite many attempts, the beast seemed to outwit its pursuers, leading some to believe that the animal was not just a creature of nature, but something much more sinister. Some even suggested that the beast was a man in disguise, a shapeshifter capable of assuming animal form. But as the years passed, a change began to occur in the case of the Beast of Gévaudan. In 1767, after nearly 3 years of terror, the beast was finally killed by a hunter named Jean Chastel, who was armed with a silver bullet, a detail that only added to the mythic nature of the story. Chastel's triumph was celebrated, but questions lingered. Was the creature truly a beast, or was it something else altogether? Was there only one beast, or had it been a pack? And what exactly had terrorized the people of Gévaudan during those dark years? Modern interpretations of the beast. For many years, the mystery of the Beast of Gévaudan remained shrouded in uncertainty. Scholars and historians had long debated the true identity of the creature. Some insisted it was a mythical being, a product of superstition and collective hysteria. Others believed it was a rare and terrifying species of animal, possibly a rogue wolf or wild dog. But as modern science and archaeology have advanced, new theories have emerged, supported by forensic evidence and a deeper understanding of the local fauna. Recent scientific studies and archaeological digs have provided compelling evidence that the beast was likely not a supernatural creature, but rather a pack of wolves, or more precisely, a rare, unusually aggressive group of wolves. The attacks that occurred in the 18th century fit the profile of large predatory animals, especially wolves in packs, which are known to sometimes target humans, particularly in times of famine or scarcity of prey. In the years leading up to the attacks, France had suffered from a series of harsh winters, crop failures, and famine. This environmental stress led to the depletion of the wolves' usual prey, deer and wild boar. As a result, wolves may have been forced to venture closer to human settlements in search of food, and a desperate pack may have turned to hunting humans, which is rare, but not impossible in the history of predator attacks. Some researchers suggest that the pack of wolves responsible for the attacks was likely led by an alpha male with a particularly aggressive temperament, which may have triggered the pack's unusual behavior. DNA evidence from ancient remains has uncovered some startling findings about the wolf populations in the region. Studies have shown that during this period, certain packs in France exhibited unusually large sizes, potentially explaining the descriptions of the beast as a creature of monstrous proportions. In fact, fossils and skeletal remains discovered in the region reveal that wolves in the area were much larger and more robust than the average wolf found in Europe today. This could have led to the perception that the beast was an unusually large and powerful animal. One of the key pieces of evidence that has reshaped our understanding of the beast comes from a study of the bones and skulls of animals in the region. Archaeological digs in the area have uncovered the remains of large wild animals, many of which show signs of being killed and dismembered with teeth marks matching the size and shape of the larger wolf species found in the area during that time. Additionally, contemporary accounts from hunters who participated in the search for the beast suggest that multiple animals may have been involved in the attacks. Witnesses reported seeing several creatures working together during their attacks, which is consistent with the behavior of wolf packs. The beast's impact on French society and culture. The story of the Beast of Gévaudan did not end with its death in 1767. In fact, the events of the beast's terror had a lasting impact on French society and culture. The public's fear of the beast, combined with the widespread rumors and sensational accounts, helped to shape France's views on wolves and their role in the ecosystem. The French government, for example, increased its efforts to eradicate wolves, believing that they posed a grave threat to both human lives and livestock. By the 19th century, a concerted effort to exterminate wolves was underway, leading to the eventual near extinction of the species in France. The beast also had a significant impact on literature, folklore, and popular culture. The story of the Beast of Gévaudan became a staple of local legends and was later immortalized in French storytelling, inspiring writers and filmmakers to explore themes of human encounters with nature's most dangerous predators. The beast became a symbol of the uncontrollable forces of nature, a reminder that even in the most civilized of societies, the wild still lurks just beyond the edge of human understanding. Concluding thoughts: myth or monster? The Beast of Gévaudan remains one of the most captivating mysteries in European history. While modern scientific studies and historical analysis suggest that the beast was likely a pack of wolves, the events surrounding the terror continue to evoke a sense of awe and fear. The combination of real-world danger and mythic imagination created a legacy that has endured for centuries. Whether it was a true creature of the wild or a product of cultural hysteria, the Beast of Gévaudan reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that live in the natural world, lurking just beyond the borders of human understanding. The death of King Richard III, the last Plantagenet monarch of England, has been shrouded in mystery and legend for over 5 centuries. Richard's reign, which lasted only 2 years, was marked by intense political intrigue, a controversial rise to power, and a bloody end on the battlefield. His death at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485 and the subsequent disappearance of his body sparked years of speculation, rumors, and myths. Was Richard truly a villain, as Shakespeare's play Richard III suggests? Or was he a victim of political manipulation, unjustly vilified by history? The mystery of Richard's death and burial has intrigued historians, writers, and archaeologists alike. After his defeat by Henry Tudor at Bosworth, Richard's body was taken to Leicester, where it was reportedly displayed publicly before being hastily buried in an unmarked grave. For centuries, the precise location of his final resting place remained unknown, fueling countless theories about where Richard's remains could be found. Was Richard's body buried beneath a church altar, as some believed? Or had his remains been disposed of in a far less dignified manner, as suggested by accounts of his enemies? In Shakespeare's telling, Richard is portrayed as a ruthless, deformed villain who was ultimately punished for his crimes, but historical accounts of his reign, his death, and the way he was treated after his defeat tell a far more complicated story. Richard III, the controversial king. To understand the significance of Richard's death and burial, it is important to first explore the controversial nature of his reign. Richard ascended to the throne in 1483, after the mysterious death of his brother, King Edward IV. Richard, who had been the Duke of Gloucester, claimed the throne on the grounds that his nephew, the young Edward V, was illegitimate. Richard's rise to power was marked by both his ability to secure the throne and his brutal elimination of rivals, most notably, the disappearance of the princes in the Tower, his young nephews, which has been one of the most enduring and debated mysteries of English history. Richard's reign was short but eventful. He implemented a series of reforms that were well received by some, but his reign was marred by accusations of tyranny, political maneuvering, and the ruthless consolidation of power. His enemies portrayed him as a Machiavellian figure, while his supporters argued that he was a just king who sought to stabilize the realm. The controversy surrounding his rule played a major role in shaping his historical legacy, and even centuries after his death, historians continue to debate his character. Richard's downfall came in 1485 at the Battle of Bosworth, where his forces were defeated by the army of Henry Tudor, who would become King Henry VII. The battle, which marked the end of the Wars of the Roses, saw Richard killed in combat. According to some accounts, Richard fought bravely to the end, refusing to flee despite the loss of his army, and was eventually struck down. His death was a turning point in English history, ushering in the Tudor dynasty. However, the aftermath of his death is what would fuel the centuries of speculation that followed. The myths surrounding Richard's death and burial. The mystery of Richard III's burial began almost immediately after his death. According to early accounts, his body was stripped, displayed publicly, and then taken to Leicester, where it was hastily buried in a location that was never definitively recorded. Some accounts suggested that Richard's body was thrown into a shallow grave, while others speculated that he was secretly interred beneath the altar of Greyfriars Church, a religious site in Leicester. The lack of an official or marked grave fueled a series of theories over the centuries. Some believed that Richard's remains were hidden by his supporters to protect his memory, while others claimed that the Tudors had deliberately erased all traces of his burial to prevent any attempt to revive his cause. For centuries, Richard's final resting place became a subject of national intrigue, with various theories put forward, but no concrete evidence to back them up. As the years passed, Richard became an enduring symbol of both villainy and victimhood. The negative portrayal of Richard in Shakespeare's play cemented his legacy as one of the most infamous kings in English history, but this representation was based largely on Tudor propaganda, which sought to discredit Richard and legitimize the Tudor claim to the throne. Despite this, Richard's reputation in history remained a topic of debate, and the question of where he was buried remained unsolved for centuries. The discovery of Richard III's remains in 2012. For over 500 years, the whereabouts of Richard III's remains remained one of England's greatest historical mysteries. However, in 2012, modern archaeology brought a stunning revelation. A team of archaeologists from the University of Leicester, led by Richard Buckley, uncovered human remains beneath a parking lot in the city of Leicester, in an area previously believed to have been the site of Greyfriars Church. The discovery was initially met with skepticism, but further examination revealed that the remains were remarkably consistent with contemporary descriptions of Richard III. The skeleton showed signs of a violent death consistent with injuries suffered in battle, including a fatal blow to the skull. The remains also indicated that Richard had scoliosis, a curvature of the spine, which had been mentioned in historical accounts, including those of Tudor chroniclers. While Richard's physical appearance had been the subject of much debate, the skeletal evidence seemed to confirm that he had, in fact, been physically deformed, but not to the extreme portrayed in Shakespeare's play. The discovery of Richard III's remains was a momentous event in both historical and archaeological circles. Modern forensic analysis, including DNA testing, confirmed that the remains belonged to Richard III, the last Plantagenet king of England. the discovery was celebrated as a major breakthrough in the field of historical archaeology, providing new insights into the life and death of one of England's most controversial monarchs. The impact of the discovery, the identification of Richard III's remains sparked a new wave of interest in his life and reign. Archaeologists, historians, and the public were fascinated by the story of the king's death, his burial, and the long-standing mysteries that had surrounded him for centuries. Richard was no longer just a figure from myth and legend. He was a real man, with a tangible connection to the past. His remains were reburied in Leicester Cathedral in 2015, providing a fitting and respectful conclusion to a 500-year-old mystery. The discovery also prompted a re-evaluation of Richard's legacy. While the myths and legends surrounding his reign and death have persisted for centuries, modern scholarship has offered a more nuanced view of Richard III. While his actions and decisions as king remain the subject of debate, the evidence surrounding his death and burial has allowed for a more balanced understanding of his place in history. Concluding thoughts. A king reclaimed by history. The mystery of Richard III's death and burial, once a source of legend and speculation, has been largely unraveled by modern archaeology. The discovery of his remains in Leicester not only solved the question of where he was buried, but also shed new light on the historical figure at the center of this enduring mystery. Richard's story is no longer defined by myth and speculation. Instead, it is now grounded in the real-world evidence provided by modern science and archaeology. The long-held debates over Richard's reign, his death, and his legacy will continue, but the discovery of his remains has allowed history to offer a final, definitive chapter to the story of the last Plantagenet king. Robin Hood, the legendary outlaw of Sherwood Forest, has long been celebrated as one of the most iconic figures in English folklore. Known for his skill with a bow and arrow, his unwavering sense of justice, and his band of merry men. Robin Hood is often depicted as a champion of the poor, stealing from the rich to give to the needy. His stories, passed down through ballads, tales, and plays, have captured the hearts of generations, making him a symbol of resistance against tyranny. However, as with many figures of legend, the line between myth and reality is blurred. Was Robin Hood a purely fictional creation, a mere character of the imagination, or was he based on a real historical figure who fought against injustice during medieval England? The tales of Robin Hood have been told in countless variations, from the earliest ballads of the 14th and 15th centuries to modern retellings in books, films, and television. In these tales, Robin Hood is often portrayed as an outlaw who, along with his loyal band of followers such as Little John Friar Tuck and Maid Marian, resists the oppressive rule of the Sheriff of Nottingham, a corrupt official in the service of the greedy Prince John. Together they rob from the rich and give to the poor, righting the wrongs of society and challenging the authority of a corrupt government. In these stories, Robin Hood's character embodies the virtues of loyalty, bravery, and justice. His outlaw status and the constant conflict with the Sheriff of Nottingham symbolize the tension between the oppressed common folk and the elite ruling class. The tales of Robin Hood resonated deeply with medieval audiences, who saw in his actions the values of chivalry and the ideal of a just ruler who seeks to protect the helpless. But was Robin Hood simply a figure of folklore, or did he have a real-life counterpart? Modern historians and researchers have suggested that the legend of Robin Hood may have been inspired by real individuals who fought against tyranny in medieval England, individuals whose actions were later mythologized and transformed into the tales we know today. Historical roots of Robin Hood. Real people, real resistance. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Robin Hood legend is that the figure of Robin Hood may have been based on several historical figures rather than just one person. The earliest references to Robin Hood appear in ballads and poems that date back to the 14th century, during a time of political turmoil in England. Many of these early texts, such as The Guest of Robin Hood and Robin Hood and the Monk, suggest that Robin Hood was not a fictional creation but rather a composite of historical figures and real-life outlaws who fought against oppression. In fact, several candidates have been proposed as possible historical inspirations for Robin Hood. One of the earliest candidates is Robert Hood, a man who lived in the late 12th century and was known to be a dispossessed nobleman or a man of the lower gentry. Some historians believe that Robin Hood could have been based on the figure of Robert Hood, who, according to records, was involved in outlaw activities in the Nottinghamshire area during the reign of Richard the Lionheart. Robert Hood's name, along with his role as an outlaw, fits the general outline of Robin Hood's story. Another potential historical figure is Eustace the Monk, a real-life pirate and mercenary who lived during the 13th century. Eustace was known for his rebellious nature and his resistance to the established order. Some have drawn parallels between Eustace's acts of piracy and the Robin Hood legend, particularly the idea of stealing from the rich and challenging the authority of the ruling class. Eustace's life, full of conflict and defiance, mirrors the themes found in the Robin Hood stories, and some scholars argue that Eustace's exploits may have contributed to the myth of Robin Hood. More famously, Richard the Lionheart's absence from England during his Crusades left England under the rule of his brother, Prince John, a widely disliked ruler. This period of turmoil may have led to the creation of the Robin Hood legend, as stories about outlaws fighting against Prince John's corrupt rule spread among the common people. In this context, Robin Hood's resistance to the Sheriff of Nottingham could be interpreted as a symbolic resistance to the corrupt and oppressive rule of Prince John, the Sheriff of Nottingham, and the role of authority. While much of the Robin Hood legend centers around Robin's resistance to the Sheriff of Nottingham, it is important to consider the historical context of the sheriff's role in medieval society. The sheriffs were appointed by the monarchy to enforce royal authority in various counties, and they were often tasked with collecting taxes and maintaining order. However, many sheriffs were seen as corrupt figures who exploited the common people for their own gain. The historical Sheriff of Nottingham was likely a figure who, like other sheriffs of the time, used his position of power to enrich himself and oppress the peasantry. The figure of the sheriff in Robin Hood's story serves as a symbol of the corrupt establishment that Robin and his band of outlaws sought to challenge. While the specific historical identity of the Sheriff of Nottingham remains unclear, it is clear that the character in the Robin Hood tales represents a real issue of corruption and exploitation that would have resonated with medieval audiences. Some historians speculate that the Sheriff of Nottingham may have been a composite character, combining the roles of multiple historical figures who held positions of authority in the region during the medieval period. The Sheriff's constant pursuit of Robin Hood in the legends could symbolize the ongoing conflict between the established order and those who sought to resist it. Mythologizing a hero. From real life to legend. Over time, the historical figure of Robin Hood was transformed from a real-life outlaw into a legendary hero. The first literary accounts of Robin Hood appear in the late 14th century, in works like The Guest of Robin Hood, which recounts the adventures of Robin and his merry men. These early ballads and stories were written during a time of political and social unrest, when the English population was looking for figures who embodied justice, defiance, and hope. In these stories, Robin Hood is depicted as a noble outlaw, someone who, despite breaking the law, embodies a higher moral code of justice and righteousness. His theft from the rich is portrayed not as criminal activity, but as a form of resistance against a corrupt system. Robin Hood becomes a symbol of the common people's struggle against the elites and the unjust rulers who oppressed them. Over time, the tales of Robin Hood evolved, and new elements were added to his character. Robin became a skilled archer, a leader of a loyal band of outlaws, and a noble figure, despite his outlaw status. His interactions with Maid Marian, his feasts with Friar Tuck, and his victories over the Sheriff of Nottingham became central elements of the myth. These elements, though largely fictional, have come to define the Robin Hood legend in modern times. The enduring legacy of Robin Hood. Despite the uncertainty surrounding his true historical identity, the figure of Robin Hood has endured for centuries, and his story continues to resonate with audiences around the world. The themes of social justice, resistance against oppression, and the fight for equality are as relevant today as they were in medieval England. The legend of Robin Hood, whether based on a real individual or a composite of several figures, has become a symbol of rebellion and hope for the common people. The Robin Hood myth has been reinterpreted in countless ways over the centuries, from medieval ballads to modern films and books. His character has taken on many forms, but the core idea remains the same. Robin Hood is a hero who fights against injustice, defies authority, and defends the oppressed. His legacy, whether grounded in history or folklore, endures as one of the most powerful and enduring symbols of resistance in Western literature. The Black Death remains one of the most devastating and deadly pandemics in human history. Sweeping through Europe in the mid-14th century, it claimed the lives of an estimated 25 to 30 million people, nearly one-third of Europe's population at the time. The Black Death was unlike any epidemic the medieval world had encountered, and it left a profound mark on European society. But for centuries, the true cause of this catastrophe was a mystery. Medieval people, unacquainted with modern science and medicine, turned to supernatural explanations to make sense of the horrors unfolding around them. The disease was often attributed to divine punishment, astrological alignments, or even the wrath of malevolent spirits. However, modern research has finally uncovered the real culprit behind this deadly pandemic, a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, spread by fleas on rats. In this final part of our journey through historical myths and truths, we will explore the Black Death and how it transformed not only the course of European history, but also the way we understand pandemics and disease transmission. By examining both medieval accounts and modern scientific breakthroughs, we can better understand the true nature of the plague and its lasting impact on the world. The medieval view of the Black Death. In 1347, the Black Death arrived in Europe, and within a few short years it decimated the population, leaving entire villages and towns abandoned. The speed with which it spread and the horrific symptoms it caused, a combination of buboes, fever, and delirium, terrified the medieval population. The disease struck suddenly, with no warning or discernible cause, leaving death and devastation in its wake. At the time, Europe was rife with superstition, religious fervor, and limited scientific understanding. Faced with the sheer scale of death, people turned to spiritual explanations to make sense of what was happening. The prevailing belief was that the plague was a punishment from God, sent to cleanse humanity of its sins. This interpretation was bolstered by the Church's authority, which propagated the idea that the plague was a divine retribution for moral and spiritual failings. Some medieval thinkers believed the Black Death was caused by astrological phenomena, such as a conjunction of the planets, which they thought could influence the balance of the earth and trigger catastrophes. Others believed the cause was bad air, miasma, or foul vapors, emanating from rotting waste and stagnant water, which was thought to contaminate the atmosphere and spread disease. This concept of miasma, while partially correct in recognizing the importance of environmental factors, was far from understanding the actual mechanisms of contagion. The disease spreads. Medieval responses and misunderstandings. As the Black Death spread rapidly across Europe, the responses were varied, but all were marked by confusion, fear, and desperation. Many turned to religion for solace, with some even resorting to extreme acts of penance. Flagellants, groups of people who believed that whipping themselves could atone for humanity's sins, paraded through towns and cities, hoping that their self-inflicted suffering would appease God's wrath. Others blamed various groups, such as Jews, and accused them of poisoning wells, fueling violent outbreaks of anti-Semitic persecution. At the same time, public health measures, though rudimentary, were attempted. Quarantines were instituted, with entire towns or neighborhoods locked down to try and prevent the disease from spreading. However, these measures were based more on fear and superstition than on scientific understanding, and they often had little effect on curbing the plague's deadly spread. Despite the medieval attempts to cope with the Black Death, they could not prevent its destruction. What made the disease so deadly was not only its ability to spread quickly, but also its capacity to strike down even the most robust individuals. Those who were infected often died within days, and the high mortality rate exacerbated the sense of chaos and dread. Uncovering the true cause, Yersinia pestis and modern research. The real cause of the Black Death remained elusive for centuries. It wasn't until modern scientific research in the 19th and 20th centuries that the true culprit was identified. The breakthrough came in 1894, when the bacterium Yersinia pestis was discovered by the Swiss-French bacteriologist Alexandre Yersin. Through his work in Hong Kong, Yersin identified the bacterium as the agent responsible for the plague, specifically noting its presence in the buboes, the swollen lymph nodes that were a hallmark symptom of the disease. Further studies revealed that Yersinia pestis is primarily spread by fleas, which carry the bacteria and transmit it to humans through bites. These fleas typically infest rats, which were common in medieval towns, and it is believed that the Black Death spread through the movement of both fleas and rats. As the Mongol Empire expanded and the Silk Road flourished, the disease spread from Asia to Europe, carried by the fleas on the rats traveling aboard ships and caravans. The plague spread rapidly in the crowded conditions of European cities, where sanitation was poor and people lived in close proximity to both rats and fleas. Interestingly, the Black Death was not a single outbreak, but rather a series of waves that occurred over several centuries. The 1347-1351 pandemic was the deadliest, but subsequent waves of plague continued to strike Europe until the 18th century. Modern genetic studies have shown that the same Yersinia pestis bacteria were responsible for all of these outbreaks, though the impact was lessened as the bacteria evolved and human populations developed partial immunity over time. The lasting impact of the Black Death. The Black Death had a profound and lasting impact on medieval Europe. Beyond the sheer scale of the death toll, the plague led to significant changes in European society, economy, and culture. With such a large portion of the population wiped out, labor became scarce, leading to economic disruption and social upheaval. The feudal system, which was based on the labor of peasants, began to unravel as the surviving workers gained more power and better conditions due to the labor shortage. The Church, which had been seen as the guiding authority in medieval Europe, also suffered a blow to its credibility. The Church had promised divine protection, but its failure to prevent or cure the plague left many people questioning its power. As a result, the Black Death is often seen as one of the catalysts for the Renaissance, a period of intellectual rebirth that emphasized humanism and a return to classical learning as people began to seek knowledge beyond the confines of religious dogma. The emotional and psychological toll of the Black Death cannot be understated. The constant presence of death, the loss of family members and friends, and the uncertainty of survival created a sense of moral and existential crisis. Art, literature, and philosophy from the period often reflect a world grappling with the impermanence of life and the randomness of suffering. This led to the development of themes such as memento mori, the reminder of human mortality, and an increased focus on the afterlife. The Black Death and the modern understanding of pandemics today. The Black Death is studied not only as a historical event, but also as a case study in pandemic response. Modern epidemiology, genetics, and medical research have given us a much clearer understanding of how infectious diseases spread and how societies can better prepare for future outbreaks. The development of vaccines, quarantine protocols, and public health infrastructure are all direct responses to the lessons learned from the Black Death. The study of past pandemics, including the Black Death, has shaped our approach to modern global health challenges, such as the fight against HIV, AIDS, Ebola, and most recently, COVID-19. Understanding the cause and spread of the Black Death has given scientists and public health officials the tools to combat deadly diseases more effectively, saving countless lives. The myth of the Fountain of Youth is one of the most enduring and tantalizing legends in the history of exploration. The story goes that in the distant corners of the world, there existed a magical spring that could restore youth and grant eternal life to those who drank from its waters. For centuries, this myth captivated the imaginations of explorers, adventurers, and dreamers who sought not only to expand the horizons of the known world, but to unlock the secret of immortality itself. One of the most famous figures tied to this myth is Juan Ponce de León, the Spanish conquistador and explorer, who is often credited with leading an expedition to the New World in search of the legendary Fountain of Youth. Ponce de León's quest for the fabled waters became entwined with the search for new territories, wealth, and power, but his association with the Fountain of Youth legend has been romanticized and mythologized over the centuries. Was Ponce de Leon truly seeking immortality, or was his quest more grounded in the practical pursuit of riches and glory? And what truths lie behind the myth of the fountain itself? The legend and its roots. The myth of the Fountain of Youth is believed to have originated in ancient cultures, with various forms appearing in the writings of Greek and Roman scholars. One of the earliest references to a rejuvenating spring can be found in Homer's Odyssey, in which the goddess Circe speaks of waters that can grant eternal youth. The idea of waters or springs that could restore health and vitality became woven into various cultures, myths, particularly during periods of disease, famine, and aging. These stories promised hope to those who longed for youth, health, and, above all, immortality. However, the Fountain of Youth legend became closely associated with the New World, particularly in the context of the Age of Exploration. In the early 16th century, Spanish explorers, driven by a combination of religious zeal, greed, and ambition, began to scour the Americas for treasures and riches. The Fountain of Youth, said to be located somewhere in the Caribbean or the Americas, became a subject of great interest, especially after rumors circulated among indigenous peoples that such a spring existed. While the Fountain of Youth was not the sole goal of European explorers, it became a powerful metaphor for the relentless pursuit of everlasting life. Stories of miraculous healing springs began to appear in European literature and cartography, spurring further exploration of the Americas. In the minds of the explorers, this elusive fountain was a beacon that could reward those brave enough to find it, offering not just eternal life but also Ponce de Leon and the quest for the Fountain of Youth. Among the many Spanish conquistadors searching for new territories and treasures, Juan Ponce de Leon is the most famous figure linked to the legend of the Fountain of Youth. Ponce de Leon was a seasoned explorer and soldier who had already participated in Christopher Columbus's voyages to the Caribbean. In 1513, he set sail from Puerto Rico, ostensibly to explore the islands of the Floridian coast, but it was widely believed at the time that he was also searching for the Fountain of Youth. The exact motivations behind Ponce de Leon's expedition remain a matter of historical debate. Early accounts, particularly those written by later historians, romanticized his quest as one driven by the desire for immortality. However, many scholars now believe that Ponce de Leon was likely more interested in claiming new territories for Spain, expanding his wealth and influence and achieving personal glory. The search for the Fountain of Youth, while popularized by later writers, may have been a secondary or even mythical goal woven into the narrative of his exploration. Ponce de Leon's exploration led him to the east coast of Florida, where he landed in 1513, naming the area La Florida, due to the lush vegetation he encountered and the time of year, during the Easter feast or Pascua Florida. While there is no evidence that he ever found the Fountain of Youth, the association between his name and the legend has persisted. In fact, Ponce de Leon's exploration was more about asserting Spanish dominance over the newly discovered lands than it was about seeking eternal life. Myth versus reality, the search for life-extending waters. While Ponce de Leon's quest for the Fountain of Youth remains entrenched in myth, there is a kernel of truth behind the legend. The 16th century was a time of intense exploration, and many explorers sought not only riches but also remedies for the physical maladies they encountered in the New World. The Caribbean and Central America were known for their medicinal plants, some of which were believed to have restorative or healing properties. The healing springs that attracted explorers were likely not mystical or magical, but rather sources of mineral-rich waters. In fact, many of these springs did have known health benefits, such as improving circulation, reducing inflammation, and aiding in digestion. These natural remedies were valued by indigenous peoples long before the arrival of European settlers and explorers. Indigenous groups throughout the Americas had a rich tradition of herbal medicine, using plants and natural sources to treat a variety of ailments. It is likely that these healing properties contributed to the myth of the Fountain of Youth, with European explorers linking these health-giving waters to the belief that they could prolong life and restore youth. In modern times, some of the minerals and compounds found in natural springs, such as sulfur and calcium, have been shown to have beneficial effects on the skin, bones, and overall health. Mineral baths, for example, are still popular in some parts of the world for their perceived health benefits, though the idea of these waters granting immortality remains purely mythical. The discovery of healing springs in the New World. While Ponce de Leon may not have found the fabled Fountain of Youth, his journey through Florida and the Caribbean did lead to the discovery of healing springs that became famous in their own right. In fact, Ponce de Leon, his expedition helped draw attention to the natural springs found in various parts of the Americas, some of which were known for their mineral content. Later explorers and settlers would flock to these springs, believing in their health benefits and even establishing spas around them. One example is the hot springs in Arkansas, USA, which became known for their healing waters and was later developed as a popular destination for health seekers. Similarly, there are numerous mineral springs throughout the Americas, many of which were known to have medicinal properties long before they became popularized by European settlers. While none of these springs could grant immortality, their health benefits and restorative qualities helped fuel the myth of a fountain of youth that could reverse aging and restore vitality. Over time, the notion of the fountain of youth evolved into a broader symbol of humanity, its eternal quest for youth, vitality, and immortality, a desire that transcends cultures, centuries, and the limitations of time. The legacy of the Fountain of Youth myth. The myth of the Fountain of Youth continues to captivate the human imagination. Today, we seek ways to extend our lives and remain youthful through modern medicine, technology, and even cosmetic procedures. The legend of the Fountain of Youth, however, reminds us of our age-old desire to overcome the ravages of time, even if only through myth and legend. Though no magical spring exists that can grant eternal life, the search for the Fountain of Youth symbolized humanity's enduring hope for health, vitality, and the possibility of defying the limits of nature. From Ponce de Leon's quest to modern pursuits of anti-aging remedies, the legend of the Fountain of Youth endures, embodying our ongoing pursuit of immortality and our desire to conquer the passage of time.